It is a huge honor to be interviewing a legend in dentistry. I mean, Doug Carlsen, not only is he a dentist, but I mean, you are the biggest name in financial writing, and your writing is pure because you don't sell financial products. You're not on commission. You're not trying to get any dentist money. In fact, I always whine to you that you should try to make more money off this. You're just a really smart guy. You're a doctor of dental surgery. You've been studying financial accounting, financial management, managerial economics, all this stuff for a long time, decades. And it's an honor to be with you. So, Doug, I'm going to start with one question, first of all. Before we get into everything you know, you've been in dentistry. What year did you graduate from dental school?
77.
So right there at the 200-year millennium in 76, America's 200-year anniversary to now, you've seen dentistry for a long time. And to these young people, some of them think, man, is America sinking? Is the sky falling? They say people older like you and me, we got out in the golden years and the glory days, and now they're coming out and that we got the CEO of Heartland Dental saying that 50% of all dental students now will never own a dental office in their entire career. That in 10 years, a quarter of dentists will be working for chains. What do you think? First of all, tell me, what do you think is the economic health of dentistry in America? Macro.
It's an incredibly cool question that's not on our list here, but I think it's really important. I approached that with the ADA New Dentist back in October in San Antonio. And I talked about the golden age of dentistry. Back in dental school in particular, I had a job in 1974 with Vic Chemical, where I went around Arizona, New Mexico, Southern California, and Las Vegas selling dental products, which was Lavoris mouthwash and Benzodent denture cream. Stopping at those offices, I'd get like 2 minutes to talk to the dentist to try to sell him something, but they would always ask me about, how's it going in dental school? And again, this is back in the early mid-70s. I'd say something, and then a lot of times they'd just go into a rant and say, the golden age of dentistry is over. Back then, we didn't have to deal with insurance, and now we have to not only bill the patient, but bill insurance. It's going to be so rough on you guys. Well, we all went into practice, and a lot of us baby boomers in the early 80s, and we did okay. Fast forward to 2000, I was teaching at UCLA Dental School on Fridays. For dental students. I was doing a clinical thing back then, and most of the instructors were about my age, around 50 or so. What were they complaining about? The golden age is over. My God, we've got PPOs taking over. These poor dental students, they can't even get their regular fees. How are they going to make it? Golden age is over. Guess what? Same thing now. It's corporate dentistry. That's up against us. I think there's a golden age. Does that make sense, Howard?
Yes, we were going to talk today about one of the things on our agenda is talk about scams and us to avoid. And I think the scam that the world doesn't understand is that there's no such thing as dental insurance. We're talking about PPOs, HMOs, chain dentistry. There's no such thing as Obamacare. Insurance is 100 people drive a car and we all pay a little bit and one guy crashes the car. So we spread the risk around 100 because one guy's going to need it. Fire insurance on your house. Everybody pays a little bit of money each month, and maybe there's one house in your neighborhood that burns down in your lifetime. Health insurance, there's no one to spread the risk to. Americans basically say, I wanted, last year in 2013 was the first year that America drank more than half of its calories. We got a government that sees that the fastest growing diseases are dental caries, diabetes, and obesity, and yet they subsidize the farmers for high fructose corn syrup in the billions of dollars. I mean, just batshit crazy. And what they want is they say, well, I want to be able to smoke a pack a day, be an alcoholic, never exercise, eat lunch every day at McDonald's eating a cheeseburger, and when I need a $100,000 bypass, I want someone else like Obamacare to pay for it. So dentistry is always going to be filled. When I got out of school, the new scam was capitation. And because the patient was just going to pay $11 a month and have everything taken care of while they drink Mountain Dew and never floss their teeth. So I think until the end of time, the number one goal that all politicians are going to have is all the people are going to say, none of us want to work and we all want everything for free. So the scams will continue. And as the chains get worse and worse and worse, people will finally open up their wallet and say, well, I guess I'm just going to have to pay for quality dentistry. And it's never going to go away. Because unlike pharmacy, which they always compare to, pharmacies in France are ATM machines. You just go stick in your medical card and the penicillin comes out of a bottle. That's not dentistry. I got to lean you back in the chair. I got to tell you what you're going to do. I got to give you a shot. I got to pull your tooth. It's not a commodity. And the people who are just crushing it are just completely committed. They're just great personalities. They're great communicators. So Doug, so we both agree that people are always going to whine about all these scams. But back to the financial of a dentist. You're a dentist. You retired in 2004. You're practicing in Albuquerque, New Mexico. You haven't had to work. Your wife hasn't had to work for the last decade. You just do this for love and passion. How would you succinctly, what is the big picture advice for financial planning for a dentist?
The biggest picture, in fact, I was just talking to a certified financial planner in Toronto. I'm giving a course in Canada in a couple of weeks. It's getting out of debt. Erasing debt. Really, that is the biggest problem, especially for young dentists today, but even older dentists, 50 and older, reducing debt so that they can retire. Savings, yeah, that's a big component too, but I have more trouble with debt with dentists than anything else.
Okay, but my problem with debt is that there's debt for other people's money, debt, leverage for growing your business versus consumption. The house, the vacation, the boats. Right. So I see. This is my problem I have with dental students. They're always telling me how much student loan money they have and how bad that is. They're supposed to be a victim. And I remind them, well, there's about 220 countries. And in 200 of those countries, you have no access to other people's money. So you could have worked for $7 an hour at Walmart for 20 years, saved up, gone to dental school in cash. But you decided to use other people's money, go to dental school now, and then pay it back as a doctor, earning $50 to $100 an hour. Right. Debt on a pano machine. I mean, this goes all the way back to the 1987 I got out of school. These people wouldn't want any debt. They wouldn't sign a lease. Debt was bad. And I say, well, if you put a pano machine in your office, and back then it was like $500 a month, and a pano was $50, paid 100% by the insurance. I said, you bill out 10 panos a month, it's free, and then the next 10 panos is profit coming in from someone else's asset. And so, and then the dentist will complain that they have $300,000 in student loans, and then they'll go marry a woman who has no intention of ever having a job in her entire career, and will spend $5,000 to $10,000 a month for 40 years. Then they'll go buy a $400,000 house. Then they'll go buy two $40,000 cars. They'll take vacations to Hawaii. And all the time they're doing that, they're whining about their $300,000 student loans and won't get a Pano or a CBCT or anything like that. So will you explain that there is a difference in good debt and bad debt?
Absolutely. And you already answered the question there. Student debt is good debt. It provides you an education to make money in the future. Student debt is good. Practice debt is good. Basically, almost any other debt, consumption debt, is wrong and is not good. I can go into more detail if you'd like on that.
Heck yes. Because, and I hope if you're a dentist listening to this, I hope you go get Muffy, call her up at the mani-pedi shop and say, hey, Muffy, after your mani-pedi, instead of going and having lunch at the tennis club, why don't you come over here? There's these two bald guys on a podcast. Because I see the women dentists so much happier because 3 out of 10 women dentists married a dentist in their class. And the other 7 out of 10, they all married physicians, lawyers. Every woman dentist I know has a husband earning $10,000 a month. And 95% of all my male dentist friends has a spouse that blows $10,000 a month. And that, my friend, $120,000 a year from age 25 to 65 is the problem. Instead of having 2 kids, you had 4. Instead of a 2,000 square foot home, you had a 5,000 square foot home. Instead of a Ford Escort, it's a Lincoln Town car, and it's a SUV, and it just never stops. And then the dentists always wonder why they're drinking Listerine and doing nitrous after hours and have a high suicide rate. I think their lifestyle is crazy. I mean, what percent of dentists do you think live like rock stars that are 50 years old and still have debt on their balance sheet for consumption?
A lot.
What
And
percent?
is I would guess probably 40.
Yeah, so 40% of 50-year-old dentists.
And the problem is, Howard, I don't see them. They don't come to my classes. Very few of them will email me or talk to me or phone me. The guys I hear from are the ones that just want some reference or some recapitulation of some knowledge that they're doing the right thing, that they've got more than enough saved, that they're doing okay, and they're going, you know what? I paid this off. I paid this off. Is that right? I've been told I need to keep my debt. No,
And
I
that, and
guys.
that's and that's what we see. We see all the healthy people have a personal trainer,
Yep.
and then all the obese people don't have a personal trainer. So that's what you're saying. So all the athletes
Exactly.
come to you, and all the non-athletes don't.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I'd like to talk about a couple of things here, and I quote Phil Tyson. He's a psychotherapist a fair amount involving psychology of debt. And I'm going to be reading some things here, guys, so put up with it. My eyes are going to waver a little bit. Uh, First is a psychological principle called future discounting. Future discounting. That's when we go, our old car is beat up. The second car is doing, our best car is doing fine. Go to the Toyota dealership, want to buy a Camry, and 45 minutes later, we've got a Highlander hybrid that costs $15,000 more. Future discounting. Well, let's make a rationalization for this. You know what? The Highlander is a much better car. It's going to last us longer. And honey, you can work a couple extra hours here and there to make up for it. So that's future discounting. The other principle that he talks about is consumption and personal identity. And I actually have a little portion in some of my courses where we talk about our self-identity and what we're connected to. Guys, obviously, it's cars a lot. Men and women, it's houses. Women, it may be clothes. It may be their kids and where they go to school. Personal identity is really important, and it can be very expensive. With me, it's sports. I'd love to go buy a $5,000 mountain bike right now. It's not in my budget this year.
Can I just say one thing to the men who have their identity with the cars? When women see a man driving a 4-wheel drive truck 3 feet off the ground, what is every woman thinking? Tiny, tiny, tiny. When they see a man in a smart car, they're thinking, I bet it's so huge he has to throw it over the bucket seat just to make room to drive. So yeah, it's a compensation mechanism. You need a Ferrari because your mom didn't hug you enough.
Yeah. We talked about homes a little bit, and the bigger home versus a little home. And I talked to dentists a fair amount about Charles Farrell. He wrote Your Money Ratios in 2000, and it indicates for various incomes how much debt you should have, how much savings, goes into educational loans, goes into insurance even. He says, and this is actually true, you should never have a home mortgage that's more than double your family income. Again, you should not have a home mortgage that's more than double your family income. And you can get 4 times or 5 times from the banks. This is crucial, and almost all of us dentists, including me, have cheated on this. In other words, if you're earning $250,000 a year, don't take out a mortgage for more than $500,000. You can get $1 million mortgage easily. The problem with this is not so much the mortgage, but it has to do with upgrades, maintenance, and property taxes. That can be especially high. $500,000 home, oftentimes it's 3% that total. So that's $15,000 a year for maintenance, upgrades, and taxes. $1 million, it often can be 5%. It geometrically goes up. So you may have $50,000 on that home per year that you're spending. $1.5 million, it may be $75,000 or $80,000 a year. Well, the difference between that $50,000 and that $15,000, that's your yearly savings for retirement. If couples could only save $35,000, $40,000, maybe $50,000 a year, they'd be in great shape. The bigger home eats it all up.
Yeah, and the nicer car and the bigger home also makes them think they're rich because they have a nice car and a big home. So they'll eat, and it just makes me cringe when I hear some dentist spouse say, "Well, I don't need it changed." Like that's for little people. I only go to boutique restaurants owned by the chef, and it's like, what is on your resume that makes you think you're a rock star? I mean, do you have a hit album I don't know about? Did you invent a greater lasting light bulb? I mean, what? And so they in a big house, they're married to a doctor, they they drive a nice car, and so that just makes all the spitting creep up. And the next thing you know, they can't buy a purse unless it has a brand name on it, and they can't eat at a chain restaurant, and they can't, I used to joke that my ex-wife, that if I wanted to hide something, I'd throw it in the oven. Yeah.
Absolutely true. Millionaire Next Door, this is Tom Stanley and William Danko did their first book back in 1996 and have done several since then. That first book goes through a Dr. North and Dr. South. They're both surgeons. They're both earning $700,000 a year. This is back in 1996. Both earning the same amount of money. Both have a wife. Both have several kids. Dr. South loves Porsches. He loves fancy cars. He spends $72,000 a year on his cars, and most of it is depreciation. Dr. North spends about $15,000 on his cars. One lives in a big house, one doesn't. One has the kids in private school, one doesn't. He went through 4, and I can't remember them, categories of spending right now. It's got to be clothes, country club, cars, and his house. There was a difference of $250,000 in spending per year between these two doctors. One, at this point, Dr. South had saved, I believe it was $400,000 in his early 50s, which is not horrible, but Dr. North had saved over $7 million. Again, similar families, identical income, identical practices. It's amazing.
Yeah. So when dentists are stressed out, when they're very stressed out, especially their practice, and they're trying to squeeze every dime out, I've always thought they should spend less effort producing and more effort on cutting spending. Spend less. And I think a big part of it is social animals want to please everybody around them. Social animals don't want to be the bearer of bad news, confront, because they want to be liked. And they can't stand up to their receptionist, their hygienist, their assistant, and can't even come this close to standing up to their spouse. And so they just run faster and faster and faster, and the stress builds up. Then one day they just explode. And when they explode, it's not pretty. I mean, it could be a suicide, it could be a divorce, it could be, a midlife crisis, a girlfriend. I mean, it's crazy. And the other thing is, if you want to change something big, you have to change something little every day. So if you want a big retirement, long time out in the future, you got to save a little bit every day. If you want to lose, 10 pounds down the year, you got to eat just a little bit less every day. But if you want to change something, you got to do a little on it every day, or it's never going to change.
And I'm trying to think of a little thing that dentists could do in their practice or personally that would make a difference. Financially, personally, just getting one loan taken care of, say paying off one credit card that has $10,000 on it. Just paying one off can make a difference. Just starting that snowball that Dave Ramsey talks about.
And the interesting thing also in the dental practice is, they always complain that, my sundries are too high. And I look at just dental sundries. I mean, in dentistry, they vary 4 to 8%.
Yeah.
So half the dentists are paying twice as much for supplies as the other half. And then you go to that dentist, you say, well, really, do you really need 3 bonding agents? Can we do 1? Do you and the hygienist and the assistants really have to have 3 different kinds of gloves? Can we do 1? And you lay out all these decisions of how you could get the 4% sundries. And they're like, no. And then when they're done saying no, they say, why is my overhead so high?
You know what? I think it comes down to the old maxim, hire people that are smarter than you. Hire smart staff. I've been in offices, you've been in offices, where you open a drawer and there's all these little syringes of all sorts of different bonding materials, etch, whatever. They should be in the refrigerator anyway, but they're just thrown in there. Absolutely, guys, waste. They waste, and they need inventory control. You know that.
And the other thing is they need emotional control. So, I always tell dentists that only 1 billion out of 7 billion people live in a country with any form of dental insurance. When you go to China and Africa and India and Brazil, they don't know what you're talking about. In fact, it's so funny trying to explain dental insurance to Chinese dentists. So like, well, if you drink Pepsi and don't floss, why would your boss pay for your root canal? And it's like, I know, dude, it doesn't make any sense. And it's funny, you're talking about national health insurance in Tasmania, Africa. The dentists say, well, if you're fat and eat cheeseburgers and smoke and drink beer, why should your president pay for your bypass? Because if you had to pay for your bypass, wouldn't that make you quit eating cheeseburgers and smoking and drinking beer? So it's hard to even explain that stuff. But the dentist, I always tell them, spend 5% of your money marketing and advertising, attracting half of America, which should half of 330 million be like 175 million people, and come in there, because if you sell a product for $1 and you make a dime on it, you have a 10% profit margin. And the average dentist that signs up for a PPO drops his fee 30%.
And there goes his profit.
And there goes all his profit. And I say, well, keep your profit at 10%. But if you raise this price of this from $1 to $1.10, you only raise your price 10%, but you raise your profit margin 20%. Spend 5% going after the margin. And they say no. And then someone will set up a PPO contract, sign without blinking. But here's where the emotional part gets crazy. You say, well, since you reduce your fee 30%, why don't you quit using an expensive lab and use a cheap lab? No, I only know what's best for my patient. Well, maybe instead of doing a composite filling, why don't you amalgam? No, I'm metal free. I mean, it's just how do you talk to these guys?
Good question. Good question. You're the man with the answers for practice management. It's tough. It's tough. And it can be an emotional roller coaster. It's amazing. Hey, I've got a thought here that I wanted to add in to the other stuff that I sent over. And this kind of goes in this area. This was Wall Street Journal this week. It's an article called Can Money Buy You Happiness? And I'm just going to read one little brief thing. There's a Professor Thomas Gilovich that wrote this. He calls hedonism hedonic adaptation that makes it so hard to buy happiness through material purchases. This is about happiness and money. Higher income brings you happiness up to, they say, about the $75,000 level, and not that much above it. But he's talking about material purchases versus actual things that you do. He says it's so hard to buy happiness through material purchases. The new dress or fancy car provides a brief thrill, but we soon come to take it for granted. Experiences, on the other hand, tend to meet more of our underlying psychological needs. They're often shared with other people, giving us a greater sense of connection, and they form a bigger part of our sense of identity. If you climb the Himalayas, that's something you'll always remember and talk about long after your favorite gadgets are gone. There's one other little thing here that I'd like to read, if I can find it. There it is. I've got a pile of papers here. The other thing that they wrote about is research shows that spending money rather than saving it, the researchers agree that spending more than you can afford is the route to misery. Savings are good for happiness. Debt is bad for happiness, but debt is potentially more bad than savings are good. That's just another area here. First thing I wanted to talk about, though, was that experiences are more important to you than just buying things. I thought that was really, really interesting. I had not heard about that before. You buy a car within a couple weeks, yeah, it's just my car. Buy a big home within a couple weeks, something breaks and you have to fix it. Or you decide, we got to make this look new, so let's put in a new kitchen. Well, it is a new kitchen. We just bought the house. Whereas experiences, going and traveling, makes a big difference. I encourage dentists, and this is practice management again, that you've got to take vacations. You absolutely have to take vacations. You've got to recharge your batteries. That'll be better for you than going out and buying something. Thoughts from you on that, Howard? So
you say what?
Thoughts from you about what I just said?
Oh yeah, I mean, I love my taking my four boys. We a lot of times we do a cruise every year, and what I like about a cruise is you pull them out of their environment. They're not with their friends. A lot of times in the house, you're in the same room, but they're texting or they're this and all that. I love getting them on a cruise ship. We're just locked in a very small cabin, and you're, and you got them for 7 days, or taking them to a foreign country. Last year, I've taken them to Belize and London and Italy, and and I also had a very fun vacation this year, climbing Mount Kilimanjaro, and then worked in an orphanage. So I'm a huge, and what I love about that is I just think when you're ripped out of your routine, So you're not waking up and putting on the coffee pot and checking your email and just doing all the things you do. When you wake up and you're at 19,000 feet on Mount Kilimanjaro, your day is going to be a little different than when you're in your office at Phoenix at sea level. But hey, Doug, I'm going to ask you the first question. One thing people should think is, where should a dentist go for investment advice? What I love about you is you're not trying to sell me anything. You're just a dentist, so you're one of us, and this has been your passionate hobby for as long as I can remember. But where do you recommend a dentist goes for financial advice?
Well, I'd like to read a couple quotes here first of all, and then we'll talk about brokers, insurance companies, investment managers, and such. Where your funds should go, first of all. Warren Buffett says most investors, both institutional and individual, will find that the best way to own common stocks is through an index fund that charges minimal fees. Index funds, ETFs are fine. Index funds, those following this path are sure to beat the net results delivered by the great majority of investment professionals. John Bogle, who's the founder of Vanguard, he's an old fart. He's like 92 years old, sharp as a tack. He says the stock market is a giant distraction from the business of investing. In other words, the stock market is gambling. Index funds, plain vanilla funds that cover the whole international universe is a way to go. So who do you go to? Traditional brokers. I think traditional brokers may be going the way of travel agents. They charge too much. A lot of them are extremely intelligent, do great for their people, and are wonderful. A lot of them aren't so well. Basically, they sell products. Yeah, they have to take a test so that they can sell products, but it's not a difficult test. Many charge front-loaded fees, which are commissions, and yearly assets under management or wrap fees. Oftentimes, the expenses for the products they sell are 1% per year and 1% for them to manage your assets. That's 2%, and that's way too high. Most of the guys I talk to have used traditional brokers. I'm not sure that's a great idea anymore. Insurance companies, I'm just going to talk briefly about that. There are fees that are hidden, and you'll never know what they are. Because agents normally don't have much financial education. They certainly know how to sell products, though. So insurance companies, I'd be extremely careful of. Investment managers. These people manage your money, and they charge a certain amount per year, an assets under management fee. There's the new robo-investors out there that I need to bring up. These are groups like Wealthfront, which is on the West Coast and Silicon Valley, and Betterment, which is on the East Coast. They will actually put you in ETF funds normally, or index funds, which are basically the same, and charge 0.25% per year, which is really, really low. That's what's going on. Now, do they give you active management advice? No. They're not going to say this sector like healthcare is going to do great this quarter, and then we're going to get back into commodities, which are down, but we know that they're going to go up. No, they will only invest for the long term. Next group, Howard, financial planners. Certified financial planners, that's the gold standard. CPAs often have a certificate for financial advice that they use. Those are the two big ones. Now, they provide full financial services like debt management, insurance advice, estate planning, and oftentimes they'll manage your wealth also. These are normally good guys. If you do go for a certified financial planner, would try to pick somebody who either charges a flat fee, which may be several $1,000s a year to manage your funds and give you advice, or an hourly fee.
So with dentaltown.com, no dentist ever has to practice solo again. We're both dentists, we're both townies. Give them a name. There's some dentists out there in Parsons, Kansas thinking, well, Doug, give me a name. Give me a website, a phone number.
Perfect. Financial planners. There's a group of them nationwide. It's called Garrett Planning Network. Cheryl Garrett is the founder, Garrett. It's either Garrett Planning Network or Garrett Financial Network. Another guy that I really like, his name is James Osborne, Osborne. He provides a lot of advice on White Coat Investor, which is the physician's blog, which does basically the same thing that I'm doing. James Osborne is at Basin Asset Management, BASON. Those are two areas where I think you can find good people who are going to give you honest, ethical service for a good fee. Fees
I'm,
investing.
I'm going to say a note to our listeners that when I started listening to podcasts, what I hated is I would be out on my bike ride or I'd be whatever, and I'd have to stop and write down a name or number. So I always do a transcript of our conversation. And then Doug, if you want to email me any names, phone numbers, websites, whatever, you email me that and I'll put that in the notes in the transcript. So if you listen to these podcasts on Dental Town, it's got the whole written transcript. So if you're on a treadmill right now, don't hit the off button.
Exactly. You guys can get in touch with me also. I'm always at drcarlsen@gmail.com. All small caps, all run together, DRCARLSEN @gmail.com. So yeah, there are good people out there. They're pretty darn hard to find though. They really are. So again, they're investment management managers that can handle your funds, but I really like the new robo investors. Robo meaning they're just machines. They're computer based. And I think that works better than someone who says, I think I can beat the market, because long term they can't.
So do you have a website, Doug? What's your www?
It is my wife's last name, Golich, Golich.
What is she, a hockey player?
Actually, she's a provost at a university and works way too hard, way too many hours, and I have to take care of the things at home. But yes.
But isn't that an Eastern Bloc name, though? A hockey name? Ukraine, Polish, Russian?
Football player, Mike Golich, I think, too. Anyway, Golich Carlsen, Carlsen. Golich Carlsen.
Right on. Okay, so I want to ask you, first of all, this should have been my first question, but Doug, how much money does a dentist need to retire, and what age range is this going to happen? I mean, if you're a dentist out there and you're 40 years old, when are you going to retire, and how much would you need? Talk about that.
Yeah, and this I deal a lot with. In fact, I give courses where people can, on the fly, just figure out how much money they're going to need for retirement and how much they need to save per year. And we go through line item budgets one by one, no preparation needed. I deal a lot with people in their 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, and even 70s as to how much they have and how much they need. What got me involved in doing this thing was that I found early on that there is a bell curve, a distribution curve, and a lot of dentists out there need to have about $150,000 in income per year to live on. That's the sweet spot. I know dentists that are making $800,000 a year or have made that amount of money. In retirement, they're spending a little over $150,000, maybe $200,000. It's close to that range. Or dentists that have made $150,000, they may want to live off of $110,000, $120,000. So $150,000 is a pretty serious goal for a lot of us, no matter what our income was beforehand. Yes, I've seen people that need up to $300,000, but that's pretty rare. So what kind of income do you need to generate that $150,000? You need a couple million, basically. $2 to $2.5 million.
$2 to $2.5 million?
That's including the sale of your practice, but not your primary residence. Now, you may have rental properties or whatever, that's included. People tend not to live in a less expensive home in retirement. They may downsize, but the downsized home is on a golf course. So you're really not going to have much less money. You're not going to have a less expensive home in retirement. So $2 to $2.5 million seems to be what most guys would like to have in retirement to live in the same style that they did beforehand. In other words, the budget is about $9,000 a month is what we see. That's not including taxes, and we're assuming that we're going to be taxed on most everything. Social Security is 85% right now. It's going to be 100%. That's assuming that you're tax deferring a lot of your funds. So $2 to $2.5 million. What age can you reach that at? That's a really good question.
Well, let me ask it this way. At age 65, what percent of the dentists are there with $2.5 million, no debt, and can live off $150,000 a year? It's what?
It's not 4%, which you hear in the media. 4% has been out of a lot of 4% of dentists have the ability to retire at age 60. Not true. That's a bogus thing.
You're cutting out, Doug. There you go. You're back. So 4% is a media hype. So what percent is it for dentists specifically, or for the general population?
Good question. I don't have a good feel for that. It's definitely less than half, and it may be between 10 and 40%. That's about the best I can hone it in.
Between 10 and 40% of the dentists can retire at 65 on $9,000 a month, $150,000 a year.
That's just off the top of my head. There's no real research on it whatsoever. What we do find, though, is that guys that are still practicing up to about age 70, just because their longevity is so much less, a lot of guys can retire at age 70, even if they have meager savings at 55 or 60, just because they won't live as long. And if
why won't they live as long?
Just
you mean because they're already 70?
Yeah, 70 to we compute out to age 95 usually.
But
yeah.
I got to ask you a question, man, because we're I don't. You say you retired in 2004, but in my mind, well, you quit doing clinical dentistry in 2004. I can't really see Doug Carlsen retired.
Oh.
And so my question is, I personally would find that a nightmare to retire. I mean, I couldn't imagine getting up every day and not having 12 gazillion things to work to do.
You are the perfect foil for this. This is great. Yeah, I'm glad we're talking about this. So go on.
So maybe a dentist shouldn't retire. Maybe a dentist should change his practice. Like I have dentists tell me the other day. One of my friends right up the street from me. I'll never forget when I'm not going to say his name because it'll get back to Bob Sundberg. He said, "I'd rather be taken out in the backyard and beat with a stick than do a root canal." I'm like, dude, don't do root canals. There's 5,000 endodontists. And I've always thought, whatever it is you hate about dentistry, you need to fix that, because if it causes you to burn out and retire and quit at 50 to 60 to 65, that'll cost you millions, as opposed to just doing what you love, doing it in a play box of staff that you love playing with. Because if you just kept working and earning until you couldn't work anymore, that would be worth millions in retirement if you could practice dentistry. In fact, the oldest dentist for 20 years that ever went to my seminar was George Rui in St. Joe, Missouri. His son, George Rui II, was a dentist, and his great-grandson, George Rui III, was my roommate in dental school. He practiced till he was 92 and just loved it. And I shouldn't say this, but he just loved it. He was the hottest commodity in the world because his spouse passed away in the 80s, and here he was, a 92-year-old dentist that put on a suit and tie every morning, and he would just brag about how he's dated every woman in St. Joe that was over 80 years old. He'd go see a patient, take some haughty 80-year-old to lunch, then go see another patient, take another haughty to dinner. But
I'm getting weird visuals, Howard. I'm getting weird visuals. This is scary.
But the other guy, he just beat that. I just had a dentist come up to me, 93 years old in L.A., survived the Auschwitz Holocaust in Poland. And he was just talking a mile a minute about how he just got this CBCT and he got into surgical guided placement implants. I mean, you couldn't get this guy to, he was the happiest guy I know. I mean, it was just amazing. And he was telling me, he's already placed 100 this year. He's crushing it, and he's 93. So maybe is wanting to retire insurance policy about worst case scenario. I have a mini stroke. Something goes wrong with my instrument. I can't practice.
Absolutely. It's to have the ability to retire if you want to have enough money that, again, worst case scenario, you get sick of it, or it's like you have the worst patient ever and it's either get out of dentistry or commit suicide. Speaking of that, I have 3 friends that are engineers that I go skiing with once a year, or had 3 friends. They were all engineers. They all worked for government. They all retired at 55. 2 of them are still alive. 1 committed suicide within the first year. So yeah, retirement itself is not necessarily the goal. To be able to have enough money to do what you want to do. And I made the conscious choice to not practice dentistry anymore. I made that choice. But you don't have to. You can work as long as you want, as long as you love doing it.
Yes.
So yeah, whatever's best for you, but to have enough money to make your choices is fine. Personally, I'm working harder right now, and I've had to change some things just in the last month, but I'm working harder now than I ever was in dentistry. I'm much busier, and I'm enjoying it more.
Yeah, what I don't understand about wanting to get rid of dentistry is that, okay, so, I mean, like when I go to my office, I mean, most of the staff have been there 10 to 25 years. I mean, I love them like family, like I got 5 sisters from mom and dad, and I have a bunch of them at work. Patients are coming in and they're in pain, and you're getting them out of pain, and they have a problem and you're helping them, and you're making their smiles better. And when people sit there and tell me they hate dentistry, I was like, we really got to talk about this, because what is it you hate? You can't hate helping people. You can't hate going in a sandbox with 5 of your best friends. So either you're in a sandbox with people you can't stand, or you're doing dental procedures that your eye-hand coordination just doesn't like to do. And why don't we work on building a staff where you just walk in and say, oh my God, it's like friends, and then helping people. And if you don't want to be the solution to specific problems, like say endo or pulling wisdom teeth or whatever, don't do it. 25,000 specialists in the United States. No reason you have to do any form of dentistry you can't stand.
Exactly. And in fact, my practice was basically all restorative. I didn't do any endo, didn't like it, didn't do any ortho, didn't do any perio. I just did basic restorative.
I don't know how anybody could not like endo. I mean, you're Stevie Wonder picking a lock for an hour. I mean, that is just like, you just want to start singing "Oh Cherie." I mean, I love endo. I mean, I love it.
Yeah. I got you.
Oh, by the way, you said you went skiing with 3 engineers. Can I tell you my only engineer joke before I ask you another great question?
Got to do it.
So there's 3 engineers, and they're sitting around a table. So if you plug in and it takes electricity, it's an electrical engineer. Have you heard this joke?
No.
If you don't plug it in and take electricity, like it moves like a motor, then it's a mechanical engineer. And if it doesn't take electricity and it doesn't move like a building or a bridge, it's a civil engineer. So the 3 of them are sitting around the table, and the electrical engineer says, God had to be an electrical engineer. And they said, well, why? And they go, well, look at the human body. It's all electricity. The brain, the spine, the nerves, it's all electricity. And the mechanical engineer says, no, I went to a ballet last night and I saw that moving ballerina, and the way she moved, God had to be a mechanical engineer. And the civil engineer says, no, God was absolutely a civil engineer. And they said, how could he be a civil engineer? A building or a bridge? How could he be a civil engineer? And he said, who else would put a wastewater treatment through a recreational park?
Ouch.
Should we edit that one out? So I want to ask you the next best question. What scams do dentists avoid? Now, we know in financial, and when we talk about money, a lot of my consulting friends, Sandy Pardue is one of them, love her to death. She says if she walks in any office up the street and does a check for embezzlement, 50% of the offices are being embezzled in front, and the doctor has no checks and balances, has no idea, doesn't, the lady getting the mail is the one entering the checks and making the deposits. Sometimes she's even the one paying the bills. The canceled checks aren't even mailed to the doctor's house. They go right to the office. You got one person doing everything. She won't take a vacation unless the doctor's there. Besides embezzlement, or you can talk about embezzlement if you want to, what scams are there any common scams that you see people preying on dentists, or scams they should avoid?
It's called the media. Almost anything on the media, radio, TV, is crap. I mean, I watch Jim Cramer, I watch CNBC all the time. Most of that is just noise, basically. Guys on the radio, up until a few months ago, they were really on the gold and silver bandwagon. Well, you know where that's gone recently. Others are trying to sell safe investments, which means insurance. So let me go down the list here. First of all, there's something out there, guys. REITs, real estate investment trusts, that should probably be part of your portfolio. Totally makes sense. But there's something out there called non-traded REITs. Non-traded REITs where they will promise you a lot more money. The problem is they're almost impossible to sell, and they have commissions as high as 15%. So
you gotta love non-liquidity, though. You love to put your money as far away from cash as you can. So when you need the cash, you just can't get it.
Oh man, yeah. I had listed here IPOs. Watch out for IPOs. Alibaba, if I would have gotten in at the right time, it would have been great. Obviously, there's a couple others that have done. Facebook was crappy at first, has done well since then. Be aware of anything that seems to be too good to be true. That's the bottom line. I wrote down here, free seminars with meals attached.
That's a good one.
He's a 100% insurance salesman. Now, I've gone to lectures, which are usually given at universities by certified financial planners, where they're giving you straight good advice. Sure, they'd like to have your business, but they have maybe cookies and coffee. That's not a full buffet meal. So the insurance guys will, it's like timeshares, which is another one of them here. They'll try to get you to sell you something because you're so well fed. So be very careful with that. Timeshares. Howard, do you have a timeshare?
No, I do not.
Yeah, doesn't make a whole lot of sense. A lot of people do. The reason being that it doesn't make a lot of sense is I can normally get a room next to yours at the Marriott, the same hotel that you have a timeshare, and probably pay less money than you do. The amount that you're spending in assessments, maintenance fees, in particular taxes, you're probably paying more per year than I have.
And why would you not want the flexibility of picking a different vacation spot? I'll give you a class example.
You can trade, but there's always problems with that. But yeah, having the flexibility of getting a room wherever you want. Yeah.
I got you practiced in Albuquerque, New Mexico for a long time, where my best dentist friend, Craig Steichen, lives there. We went to dental school together at University of Missouri, Kansas City. We thought our best vacation every year, 4 years in a row, was going deep sea fishing in Cabo. Me and Craig are the only two dentists we know that just love to go deep sea fishing. Most dentists want to golf or something else. We love deep sea fishing. But 4 years in a row, you could have rationalized to me and Craig, you should just buy a place on here because this is your best vacation ever. Yeah. And then the environment changed in Mexico. And the last time we went there, we said, "My God!" And I don't want to get into that, but we actually got pulled over walking back by the police, and they took all of our money and drove off.
Oh man, that's cool.
And we're just like, wow. Two American dentists down here on vacation, and the police just took all of our money and we left. So I'm never going back. Yeah. Unless somebody sells me that something changed in Cabo. I mean, that was crazy. So, yeah, I wouldn't want to go to the same place every time on vacation. That sounds boring. Tell me this, Doug. What do you read? I mean, are you a big fan of the Wall Street Journal, The Economist? What about internet stuff? Or do you like Motley Fool? What are you reading?
Ooh, I didn't bring the list right now, it's in Dental Town.
Well, you can attach it to the email with the notes. We'll put it at the end of your transcript.
Yeah, so off the top of my head, let's talk about websites, let's talk about videos. First of all, Consuelo Mack, last name is Mack. Consuelo Mack has some really, really good business videos. It's called Wealth Track is where you can find it.
Wealthtrack.com?
Wealthtrack.com.
Are these videos you buy?
No, they're just online. Everything's free here except books, obviously. So that's a really good one to get into. As far as other websites, White Coat Investor is a really good one. This was started by Jim Dolly. He's a 39-year-old physician and ER doc who tried to kill me at Snowbird last year in April and didn't. Anyway, he's got a very cool blog where he writes some, but he has a lot of experts write on his blog for him. It's a really neat site, and I go to that a lot for something like a backdoor IRA, other types of 401ks. He gets into a lot of detail about all sorts of different financial investments in particular. I'm the great simplifier. I'll say, you know what, that's cool, but watch your fees, watch your expenses. If you're getting into a defined benefit pension, be really careful as to how much you're really spending on it. Jim Dolly does those sorts of things. Let's talk about newsletters. Newsletters, there's so many that dentists read that are proprietary newsletters, which again are active trading, active investing. I don't really read anything other than Consumer Reports. There's a money advisor is what it's called, Consumer Reports Money Advisor. Books. The books that I really like best, John Bogle wrote one called The Little Book of Common Sense Investing. It's short, it's to the point, and it's really cool. At the end of each chapter, he says, and if you don't believe me, here's a reference to somebody else. And it's all about index investing, fees, how much you should pay, how much you shouldn't. That's a fantastic book. Jim Dolly's book is...
I need to stop you. You keep mentioning these terms, and I think we forget how old we are. There's dental students who don't know what index funds are.
Excuse me. Yes. Thank you. Index funds are a bunch of funds. They follow an index like the S&P 500, which is all the large cap funds in America. So there are 500 companies in there. It's an S&P 500 index. It follows all of them. How they're weighted depends on how they want to do it, but it just follows all of those companies. Dow Jones 30 Industrials is 30 very large corporations. There's an index fund for that. There's bond index funds which follow U.S. Treasuries.
But explain to a dental student why an index fund has such a lower cost structure than, say, calling a brokerage house and buying their energy fund or their gas fund or their,
Basically, it's a bundle of funds where there's nothing to be done. There's no real advising, no managing of the funds. It just follows how they do on the stock market. And there's an average, say, between all 500 funds in the S&P 500. It just tracks that. It does nothing with it. There's no work involved, and the fees are very low. And over the long term, using these big baskets of fund does better overall than picking and choosing the little ones that you want.
And the number I always hear thrown around is that the index fund beats about 70% of all funds.
It beats usually about, of all financial advisors.
Because they're not taking a commission. There's no human making a living off of your money.
Exactly.
So because of that lower cost structure, you're going to have more net profit than about 7 out of 10 funds, right?
Yeah. And there are advisors that say, you know what, I'm going to buy a basket of funds that I'm going to hand pick, and they're going to do better than this huge group of funds. 70% of those will not beat the large group of funds.
Doug, I read a lot of books. I got my MBA at Arizona State University. I, subscribed to, The Economist and Forbes and Fortune and Inc. and all that stuff. But you know what I like reading the most?
What?
All kidding aside, I'm blowing air up your skirt. It's you. On those, I want to tell our viewers something. What I like the most about Dental Town message boards is I think I have a question about something, a bonding agent, an implant, a laser, whatever. And when I see that question asked on Dental Town, I'll just do a search for the question. I don't start most of the questions. I don't start 99% of them. The question's already been asked. But what's funny in my mind is I'll ask a question and I see what the other dentists are asking. And it's like, I wasn't even smart enough to ask that question. Yeah. And what I like about financial planning is on Dental Town, my God, you have answered every financial question for a decade. Some of your threads you have 10,000 comments, and I'm reading through there and I think, I see this guy's response and I think, oh, well, this. And then you will say something that I didn't even think about. And all of our colleagues are wickedly smart. To be a dentist, you had to get an A in calculus. Applied math is physics. My God, that's so hard. Applied physics is chemistry. These guys got A's in all that. Applied chemistry is biology. They got A's in that. Applied biology is dentistry. The questions and the feedback and the banter going back and forth, half the times I'm reading your threads, I wasn't even smart enough to know that's where the debate was at. And it's all dentists, so it all applies to dentistry. And I'm 52, so that's about the average age of the dentists out there. And God, man, you've written 70 articles. I also want to tell our viewers that on Dental Town Magazine, we have 92,000 direct requests. That means, and what a direct request means is if I just mail out 125,000 Dental Town magazines and nobody signs that card, the post office says, well, that's junk mail. You're spamming people. And they charge me the highest postage rate. But if I get 51% of the people to sign a card that says, oh, it's not spam, I actually want to receive this, then that's what lowers our postage from third class to second class. If you move or retire or die or whatever, the postman returns the magazine and so our database is clean. We have 92,000 direct requests. And then that magazine is online. So not only online, we get to see every article, who's viewed, whatever. And dude, you're number one. And it's a big joke because everybody's like, why do you let Doug Carlsen have a column and all these articles? You have 70 published columns around the United States in different magazines. It's like you said earlier that people should hire people smarter than themselves. And what I'm proud enough is that I'm on Dental Town, and I let you outshine me every month. And it's just an honor that you write this creative genius stuff. Your material is tested, because anybody that doesn't agree with Doug Carlsen, they'll just say, Doug, you're wrong. I don't agree. And you're right there, and you debate this stuff in a sweet way, a non-threatening way. You're never throwing rocks at people. You're just a sweet, nice, brilliant dentist, financial genius. And my God, I mean, how many hours have you spent on Dental Town in the last 10 years answering all those questions? Have you ever thought about that?
A couple hours, I think.
Oh my gosh. You log on every day?
I have not, yeah, pretty much.
Pretty much?
Yeah.
I mean, how many hours a month or a week or a day? How many hours a day are you on Dental Town? I mean, how many minutes a day?
It probably averages an hour a day, I would guess. Sometimes it's quite a bit longer than that, but an hour a day, counting 7 days a week.
And that's
they have big threads like the new dentist thing that goes on forever. That takes a lot of time.
Yeah, but you help these dentists from being stressed out of their mind. You've probably prevented suicides and don't even know it. I mean, you're just like a father figure on that side. I mean, Dental Town wouldn't even be the same without you.
Can I show this to my wife? She needs to know.
But really, Doug, I mean, you're a self-giving person. I mean, you give all this advice for free. You're not even selling us something. And it reminds me of, I think I should do a slogan about Dental Town, so I like the AA for dentists, because people that go to AA, they're volunteers. And I've asked some of my dentist friends, like, why? I never forget getting chewed out by one of my very good friends. I said, really, dude, you have to go to AA every day after 30 years just not to drink beer for breakfast? And he goes, no, God, Howard, are you that dumb? He goes, I go there every day for an hour before I go to work, because I'm trying to save some dumbass kid from what I ruined my life 30 years ago. Yeah. And that's what Dental Town is. I mean, you guys are there sharing for free, because you truly want the dentist to get out of debt. You truly want them to lower their lifestyle. You truly want them to save. You're doing all this out of just passion from your heart. I mean, that's so sweet and special.
And there's some real heroes out there too, financially, that have really done it right. Both of us are connected. It's about connections. Most of my material comes from other people. In fact, basically almost all of it comes from other people. There's smart people on Dental Town. There's extremely smart financial dentists, and there's a lot of dentists out there that are extremely intelligent and have no clue as to what they're doing, because they're being led in the wrong direction. So listening to others, and yeah, not everybody agrees with me. And every now and then, Carlsen, you're full of crap. And I just laugh and go, well, yeah, I am. Let's see what we can do to figure this out. This is how you deal with it too. So you have instituted something that's very special that other physicians do not have, other types of doctors do not have, where they can get online, go after each other, and come up with important information.
Well, what I love about Dental Town is what you just said, is there's 47 forums, and man, you can't be on the top of your game in endo and perio and pedo and finance. You can't be on top of your game in 47 forums. So at some point you have to realize, as a practicing dentist, there's 9 specialties. You can't do 9 specialties to the level of the specialist. It cannot be done. And so there's a lot of kids that, they're just trying to get out of school, and then they're just trying to get their practice open. Then they're trying to do all these things, and the financial planning stuff has gone to the back burner. But what's neat about the threads you have, in fact, I want to ask you, if you're finally ready to start thinking about this and sit down with your significant other, lover, and read together and go over what all these smart, passionate talk about, what thread would you recommend that they read through? They're 35 to 40. They're spending too much money. They're starting to realize they're not going to live forever. They need to retire, be able to retire in 25 years. What thread would you recommend, or must read threads on that you've?
The financial ones?
Mm-hmm.
What threads? Oh my God. That's too big of a question. Talking about my articles, or, you can look for the number of hits. There's a lot of financial threads that I'm not involved with. I'm trying to think of, there's some that have like 8,000 different hits. I'd look at the numbers on them. The ones that have most hits are going to be the most, have the most information. But anything that has to do with debt, I just wrote an article for Dental Town about the stupid financial mistakes I made. There's a couple of those threads that I quote occasionally. What in the heck did I do so bad? What was my biggest mistake? I made all these mistakes that everybody else did. Somehow I was able to save 20% per year. That was how I did it. Not by making all the right financial moves or having the right financial planners or even having debt necessarily under control. We saved.
Yeah, so we're out of time. We're at 59 and a half minutes. So I think the biggest takeaway from this is it's not what you make, it's what you spend. Just reduce your spending.
Yep. Yep.
I mean, that's the bottom line. Oh, I got one last question. I can't walk away without this. Is I went to Creighton in Omaha, Nebraska, and we drove by Warren Buffett's house. He still lives there. He's the second richest man in the United States. It's this little 50, 75-year-old little bitty house.
Yep.
And that's the second richest guy. And I was just lecturing in Stockholm, Sweden a couple of years ago, and the dentist there drove me by the founder of IKEA. I mean, unbelievable. This guy, they were saying he was worth like 87 billion euros, and he had a house half the size as Warren Buffett's. I mean, it was just incredible. And the guy told me that, his passion was just trying how to make furniture last the longest at the best materials for the lowest price. And what do you think about just Berkshire Hathaway? I mean, is that kind of like a mutual fund? Is that kind of like an index fund? I mean, how would you compare he's the second richest man in the world. He's the richest financial advisor. What do you think about holding a bunch of Berkshire Hathaway?
I'm going to go with Warren Buffett. He said recently that if he dies before his wife, he's going to put all of the money that he has from his estate into Vanguard index funds, not Berkshire Hathaway. Berkshire Hathaway has done fantastic over the years, and it's a good fund to buy. If you had to buy just one stock, and it's not really a stock, and it's an ownership of a bunch of different companies. If you wanted to buy one stock, though, that may be the one to buy. But Warren himself says, no, I would not invest in Berkshire Hathaway. I would put it into Vanguard funds because that's probably going to perform better in the future. In other words,
he's saying do that if he's dead, or do that today.
I think he's saying do it today.
Now, do you think if we woke up to the news that old guy passed away, that stock would take a hit?
Don't know. But what he is saying here, and I just mentioned it, is I think he feels that maybe along the way he's been a bit lucky. Now, the guy is shrewd as hell. He checks out all these companies. But there's a bit of luck involved. And with a smaller portion of the market with Berkshire Hathaway, it doesn't have any foreign investments, I don't think, at all. It may not do as well in the future. So he says just get broad-based index fund, buy the whole universe of funds.
So, Doug, how many articles do you have on Dental Town?
60 or something.
Yeah. So, my gosh.
Look.
You need to do this as a family. You need to sit down with your kids. You need to get your lover, your significant other, and you should start reading through Doug's articles. Doug, I want to thank you so much for not only everything you did, clinical dentistry and your patients in Albuquerque, but not everything you do for dentistry, but everything you do for Dental Town. You're an amazing guy. Love you to death. Thanks for all that you do for everyone.
Hey, thank you, Howard. This was fun, and you dressed really nicely for this.
Well, seriously, I don't own this tux. It's a rental, and no, it's a $5 tux shirt. I just love it.
And I'm wearing my Hawaiian shirt because it's 26 degrees outside in Denver today.
Well, actually, we're freezing to death here in Phoenix too. It's not even going to hit 80 today.
Oh my God! What are you going to do?
I'm going to have to take my shorts off and put on some long sweats.
Okay, sounds good.
All right, buddy. Good seeing you. See you on the boards.
Okay, thanks.